Hey, how's it going? Welcome to this video. You're very brave. I'm Luis, and I'm going to help you get a feel for how a compressor works without making it complicated. Okay, so you're going to intuitively know what the controls do. So I'm also going to link you to one of the best sounding free compressors and give you a couple of example settings, one for adding punch and one for thickening your tracks. So let's do it. Fundamentals of compression. What does compression do? Why do we want to use it? So what is compression? It changes the shape of audio signals by reducing volume. This reducing volume is also called gain reduction. It's the same thing. So the two most common uses of compression are to make audio punchier and to make audio more even or thicker or in control sounding. So say we have a pretty lifeless drum loop and we want it to punch through the mix some more. How do we do this just by reducing volume? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the volume down. We're going to let the initial hit of the drum come through. We're going to turn the volume down just for the tail of the drum and bring the volume back up just in time for the next drum hit. This will give you a punchier sound because the tail of the drum is now much quieter in comparison to the beginning of the drum. We can also make the drums sound more even or thicker or fatter if you like. Maybe they're poking through the mix too much already and we need them to fall back a little bit. So how do we do this just by reducing volume? We do pretty much the exact opposite. We turn the volume down for that initial hit of the drum. You can think of like the initial hit of the stick against the drum head, just the initial transient of the sound. I'm going to turn that down in volume. Let the volume come back up to normal right after that initial hit is done. And this will smooth out the initial hit, leaving you with a more even signal with more body or sustain. So the drum tone will stay present or sustain for a longer time. So how do we make a compressor do all this for us? Compressor controls! To understand compression, we just need 4 simple controls. I recommend you follow along with this. There are free download links in the description for the drum loop and the compressor I'm using, as well as a really handy cheat sheet that has all of this information on one page. So if you just want to watch, that's cool too. We're going to learn regardless. So let's get down to these settings. So the first control we're going to look at is threshold. All that threshold does is tell the compressor when it can start reducing volume. So let's say we put the threshold at like negative 25 decibels. Anytime audio crosses over negative 25 decibels, anytime the volume is higher than negative 25 decibels, the compressor will start bringing it down. So the next control we're going to talk about is ratio. Ratio is the strength of the compressor's volume reduction. So once audio crosses the threshold, the ratio controls how strongly the compressor brings down the volume. So the lowest setting here, 1:1, does nothing. 0 strength, okay? So we're going to play the audio here, and we're going to show you how no gain reduction is happening. Nothing. But we turn the ratio up. There you go. Then you start getting some gain reduction there. So here's some ratio numbers for you. Between 1:1, 4:1, that's pretty light ratio. Between 4:1, 8:1 is like a medium ratio. And between 8:1 to 20:1, that's a pretty high ratio. Next control, attack. Attack is just how quickly the compressor starts working. So for example, if we have a 50 millisecond attack time, when audio crosses the threshold, when audio goes over 25 decibels, the compressor is going to wait 50 milliseconds of attack time before it starts compressing, before it starts bringing the volume of that audio down. So intuitively, you can think of attack time like this. Faster attack times will squash peaks. It will push audio peaks down, while slower attack times will squash tails. They will push the audio tails down. So our last control that we're going to go over, release. Release tells the compressor when to let go of its compression. It controls how fast the audio recovers from the compression. You can also think of it as how fast the audio bounces back from the compression. So fast release times let your audio recover really fast. Slow release times keep your audio held down for longer. So let's give you some numbers here. Fast release time between 0 to 15 milliseconds, medium release time 15 to 50, and slow release times 50 to 200 milliseconds. Let's build up a full example to make sure we know what all these controls are doing and how they work together before moving on to the example settings. So let's listen to our input audio just so we can see where to set the threshold. These green bars will represent our volume. Cool. So -34, let's do -35 threshold. So whenever audio crosses -35 decibels, whenever it gets louder than -35 decibels, the compressor knows it can start bringing the volume down. How strongly do we want to bring it down? Let's say we want to use a lot of strength. So let's do a 10-to-1 ratio. Attack time. How long should we wait before reducing the volume? Let's say we want to let the peaks live a little bit and we want to squash the tails. So we'll use a medium slow attack time to squash those tails down and let the peaks come through. So like we said, we want to squash the tails. So let's use a longer release time of like 200 because we don't want the audio to recover or bounce back from our compression too quickly. So let's think of what all these settings are doing one by one. So threshold. Whenever audio crosses -35 decibels, whenever it gets louder than that, compressor brings down the audio. First, it's going to wait 40 milliseconds of attack time before it starts bringing down the audio. So let's look at all these controls and make sure we know what we're doing. So let's look at all these controls and think through them one by one, just so we get a real good understanding of what they're all doing. So threshold, -35 decibels. Whenever our input audio gets louder than that, the compressor knows it's time to start bringing the volume down. It's time to start working on that. Attack time, 40 milliseconds. Tells the compressor, wait 40 milliseconds, and then we can start bringing the volume down. Ratio of 10-to-1. How strongly do we want to bring the volume down? This 10-to-1 ratio tells the compressor to use a lot of strength whenever the audio crosses the threshold. So we're going to use a lot of strength to bring the volume down. Release time of 200 milliseconds. We're going to keep that audio held down for 200 milliseconds before letting it recover back to normal volume. So together, we're going to get a sound like this. With a wait time of 40 milliseconds, we're going to let the peaks come through without being affected by the compression. With a release time of 200 and a ratio of 10-to-1, pretty strong ratio, we're going to keep the tails of the drums squashed down for a bit, and the peaks are going to come through really powerfully. So let's hear what this sounds like. Let's hear what this sounds like. So this is without compression. This is with compression. You can hear that initial hit of the drum coming through a lot clearer. So congratulations, that's all the compression controls. Not that scary, right? Congratulations, that's all the fundamentals of compression with some solid settings to get you started. Have fun with it. There is one common setting we didn't discuss because it tends to complicate things a little bit, and that setting is the knee setting. It can make your compression sound more natural, and if you want to know how it works, there's a little bit written about it on the compressor cheat sheet, and there's also a more in-depth explanation that explains it very well on the Ableton forum, and I've linked that thread in the description. So leave a like if you liked. If you have a question or request or you think I suck, leave a comment, and peace.